Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and today I am joined by Kevin and Mitchell. And today's episode is all about LCS roster changes and any other LCS bits of news and just things that we see on Reddit and that sort of thing. Because, you know, even when there's no actual games going on, the LCS is never without some kind of spiciness. So we're going to dive into all of that. Real quick, though, I just want to catch up to y'all. This is our first episode after Thanksgiving. How was your break? How's life going in general for you guys?
My break was good. One of my coworkers invited me to their family's Thanksgiving. It was awesome. So
Nice.
had a good Thanksgiving food. I haven't had like a real Thanksgiving since like COVID. So
Oh, good.
it's been nice.
Nice. Yeah, I had my high school reunion. 10
Ooh.
years. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
old.
Old
Yeah,
fun.
that was surreal. It was weird. I met them all near my high school and everybody was like kind of the same, but I also kind of didn't remember a lot of people. I was surprised. Yeah. But yeah, it was good. It was good. Meet some old pals. Yeah.
It's because Mitchell was that cool kid at school that didn't, you know, everybody was beneath him. He was the cool guy, and he didn't remember
Yeah,
people's
totally.
names.
Yeah. I was busy
Totally.
playing League, so
Yeah.
not cool enough for me.
Yeah, he was
Yeah, they didn't
totally-
pass the ELO check back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Well, hey, look, there's a lot of stuff going on in the League of Legends sphere. We won't talk about gameplay today, but I know on the PvE, new patches hit and it's all season 14 changes. So I believe you guys will do another episode on that. But today we're just going to talk about all the news and roster stuff for the LCS. And I wanted to start off really quick. We're a little late on it, but just the Donezo Manifesto by EMENES leaving C9 and just kind of all the things he had put out there. And, you know, kind of in that same line, there was a thing by Summit as well, kind of calling out APA as a Ziggs one trick, and just a little bit of shadiness, a little bit of spiciness towards former teammates. And so I wanted to get you guys' reactions on that because again, like I said, these were two teams that, you know, were supposed to be top contenders last year, and to see kind of this drama, a little bit interesting to get an inside look. So what are your thoughts?
So normally I'm not like a super huge fan of these kind of Donezo manifestos in the sense that I think it's a little toxic and it kind of ruins your esports stuff. EMENES is retiring, and also we've been saying for a while, like, you know, we want our import players to have personalities. I kind of enjoyed this in the sense that like we get a rare look into like what they're actually thinking. So in EMENES's things, the highlights were just saying he's like Fudge and Blabber both don't practice, which I thought Fudge didn't practice, just like the normal way you're supposed to, which is solo queue. But Blabber not practicing is odd to me. Very surprising. He also confirmed JoJo is really good. So once again, that's good to hear. And as a Team Liquid fan, he said Yeon and contracts are actually grinders along with your JoJo pun. So honestly, those are all like things I wanted to hear. This Donezo Manifesto wasn't just only blaming others. He was also saying good things. So I think it's more funny that it's a Donezo Manifesto. He did say Fudge help the team function, and he's like he maintains the aggro online, which is, you know, true. He says LS is not human, which I think is one of the spiciest things I heard throughout all this, because I didn't even know they were like interacting. I know he was on Academy for a bit, but I was like, why is LS not human? There was no, I'm just like, you're just gonna leave it at that. So maybe we'll speculate in a future episode when we learn more, or you guys can speculate now. And that's about it. I think it was a really funny Donezo Manifesto. For Summits, we know that there was a lot of tension in that team, and I know that there was a little bit of a mistranslation, but Pioshik also said, like, you know, we had a limited bid pool, but it wasn't like flame. I felt like he was just like, yeah, based off of our picks, like it was very hard because we were getting narrowed, which is true. Summit saying we had a Ziggs one trick.
Hey,
he's not wrong.
Yeah.
However, like the pot calling the kettle black, like what in God, who his one tricks don't even win games, man. I'm pretty sure that APA is like over an 80% win rate with Ziggs. Whenever he picks it in pro play, and he gets bans pulled all the time. We should be banning Gnar when Summit was on the team. That's what I'm. That's all I'm saying. That's my take on the Donezo Manifesto. I'm glad that our imports are having personality. but that doesn't mean they're immune to criticism if they just like totally don't have the right to say things at Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about what EMENES said. I mean, we didn't learn, I think, too much new stuff. I mean, he said that NA doesn't practice. We kind of already knew that. He did say, because he was on Excel Academy, I think, so he did say that, when he was in EU, they practiced a lot more and tried harder, but they were, I think, more toxic also though.
Mhm.
And they were, um, I guess, like, they didn't think Eminez was smart because he couldn't speak English well, and that's something that I've heard a lot too. Being around other people who don't speak English well in my life. But yeah, I mean, Fudge and Blabber not practicing. I actually, Blabber is one of our best players on the outside, like looking in. But I would not actually be that surprised if, at least in LCS, that Blabber didn't actually practice that much.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, his finals last split was not very good, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if he could actually, C9 and him as a team could phone it in and make it to finals. And, they didn't win the finals, but that was them phoning it all the way in. I it's I'm sure it's hard. I mean, Doublelift has talked about this, Bjergsen has talked about this, to keep practicing and stay at the highest level, especially when you're in NA. I think there's more motivation when you're in Korea or China. You actually have a chance to win worlds. But when there's almost zero chance to win worlds, or you assume that there's no chance to win, um, yeah, I'm not surprised Blabber doesn't practice that much. He should, but I mean, what's the reward gonna get him, right? Like, it's energy practiced a ton, which Eminez did say, and I think that we can all agree that yeah, they reaped the benefits and they beat EU. But that's all they really did, right? They had one good series against EU. Are you willing to practice your butts off the entire year for one good series? I don't know. I mean, for energy, I would say it was worth it because it's like their first time doing this sort of thing. For Cloud9, for Blabber, this is why I'm kind of like, we have some of our greats and stuff, but we do kind of have to move away from them at some point. I don't want to get rid of Blabber, but at some point in the not so distant future, we will have to let go of Blabber. Like, that's going to happen at some day where he won't be a player on the main team. So, yeah, I mean, we got to get players who want to practice, but also I don't blame players who've been veterans for 7 years who don't want to practice that much anymore because they're just doing the same thing, right, year after year. So it's a bit of a bummer, but I actually do believe Eminez, that idea, that Fudge, Blabber, and probably a couple other people don't practice very much. Yikes.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of go along that same vein of like staying competitive for so long and kind of having that motivation to stay at the top of your game. I've mentioned this before, but it's hard if you're on top and you're winning all the time, like, at least for Cloud9 domestically, and then your chances at Worlds are, let's face it, it's pretty slim, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's factors you can control or whether they perceive that they can't control it. Like, I know they make a lot of quote unquote excuses, which may actually have some merit to it. Like if the environment here isn't as good as it is over in Asia, then you're never going to really get quality reps to prepare yourself for that kind of competition. So, we won't go into that road, but I think, yeah, that could be frustrating. What's the motivation then? If you're at the top of the LCS and have been for quite some time, then what is it in your mind that is going to make you still hungry and still chase something? Because I think back then, there was like always, I think, an actual serious NA hope. I think we always, maybe in the back of our mind, we're like, maybe they could actually do it. I think, at least for me, in the past 2 or 3 years, I haven't seriously thought NA could ever really have a shot at making it to like even semifinals, right?
I
Like,
haven't had hope since like 2019, man. It's been
yeah.
like 4 years. Yeah, it's been a long time.
And I mean, that's what I mean. Like, we always had that quote NA hope, but it really does seem like a
Yeah.
meme and just for fun nowadays. And we're always going to say, yeah, NA is going to win it, but nobody's actually serious. And so I can kind of understand the perspective of a Blabber because it's hard. It's hard to stay good when you're already at the top of, maybe what is in your control. And so you see this all the time in other sports too. And the ones that are truly great, like that are considered maybe the greatest of all time in their sport, they have some way to stay motivated and competitive. And it's an internal thing. So whatever it is for Faker, whether, he does have chances to win worlds. He just won it, right? So even though
Yeah.
time goes on, he still grinds and practices like He has been. I mean, I think even Bjergsen was another good example of like, always grinding. His skills eventually diminish, but I felt like he had a pretty good work ethic. So I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm thinking as far as that stuff goes. But it's
But
it's
I
going to be
think
tough.
it's like Blabber is so far into his career. He's like 6 or 7 years into it.
Yeah.
He's about the same point or longer or as long, maybe a little bit shorter than Doublelift, but about the same point as Bjergsen, where it's just like, yeah, you guys had hope for that first like what 4 or 5 chunk of years where you made it out of groups or got close to making it out of groups, and now he's in the end stage maybe where Bjergsen and Doublelift in the end stage of the careers, they did kind of give
Yeah.
up on their dream of winning worlds,
Yeah.
So that's just what happens. Like all the NA grades so far, it's not a long list. They did kind of just start phoning it in towards
Yeah,
the end.
because I mean, that prize actually does seem like out of reach. At some
Yeah.
point, it's
Yeah.
got to be something where you're like, okay, that's the goal, and it seems attainable. And I think for most of their careers, they're like, yes, we can. Build new rosters, super rosters. Add this piece. But after a while, you're like, okay, it's really not going to happen. And I think that's where
Yeah.
the
Just
the
mix and
crumble is.
match the same
Mix and
people
match.
you've
Yeah,
seen and played
exactly,
around with. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
it can get old. So
I do have a brief question on that note. Do you guys think, because we see like these new bloods come in, like JoJo, right? Where he's like actually, I believe he's actually confident he can win something someday, right? But do you think that they should have a majority old talent to foster that, or do you think that that's a risk to their mentality? Because if you're surrounded by a bunch of jaded pros who are, passionate before but been beaten up internationally, do you think that also ruins new players who are like super good, hot and new, but like they are just, they
I
have
mean,
their mentality gets shaped by the people they're surrounded by.
I think the example is kind of T1, right? Like you have Faker, who was
Mm.
the veteran, surrounded by all these people who grew up in the academy. Now, I will say the 2 years together and even the academy system, that chemistry matters. Like playing together matters. Because you get each other's tendencies, you get each other's strengths and weaknesses. You understand communication a lot better, like with subtle nuances or whatever. And so I would say that like I would air that it needs to be a mix. And I think we've seen successes like that in past LCS rosters. What that mix is, I'm not sure. I don't think you want majority old heads, because you still need the hands, and T1
yeah.
still has the hands, and Faker with his old age still has displayed certain moments of hands, right? I mean, not as many as we used to, but look, it's enough to, like he was probably one of the better mid laners this year, right? So at his
Yep.
age and his length of career, for him being a veteran, that's still pretty good. So to answer your question, Kevin, I do think JoJo maybe needs one elderly presence to kind of, and maybe it's not even in the player. Maybe it's not a player. Maybe it's a coach, like someone who has pretty good experience that can translate. But
Yeah.
those are my
I,
thoughts.
I think honestly, it's like yes. I mean, that jaded player can definitely bring things down, and I think that that has in the past with NA rosters and other rosters. I do think like that you need some kind of like guy who's done it before. Like when Core JJ came over, like he was pretty fresh off of like winning worlds, and he did have a pretty bad worlds performance in 2018, and then he went to Team Liquid in 2019. But you need like that some guy who's done it before, who you can go to and be like, hey, what is it? What do you? How do you do it? Because you did it before, right? But when you have like a guy who thinks he knows that you can't do it anymore, I do think that that is damaging. Like if
Mm.
he fully believes he can't do it anymore, it's like it's a little scary, right? What if Blabber and JoJo they play together and like they win and they go undefeated or something crazy in C9 and they get absolutely giga blasted at MSI? We don't know what Blabber is saying to JoJo, but could that bleed over? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember when JoJo went to MSI and EG, um, Inspired and Impact were telling JoJo and Danny, "Hey, we're gonna go to MSI and we're gonna get completely giga blasted in scrims. Don't let it affect your mental. Like, stay positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like." If you do that with the same team and you go to your fourth MSI or something together, Impact and Inspired are gonna get exhausted saying that thing. We're gonna get Giga Blasted at scrims for the fourth year in a row. You know what I mean? And I think you do kind of need to shake those kind of things up and have someone who says like, no, like we did this. I did this last year. Like follow some of these steps. We can do it again. You need hope. Like, even if it is complete hopium copium, you need that. Because I mean, I think that's how NRG got there, right? They didn't have anybody on their team who was like, we're definitely gonna get Giga Blasted. It's doomed. They're just like, we can do it because we've never been here before. There's no thing saying that we can't do it.
Yeah.
So you know, we'll talk about the rosters. I think it's a pretty good direct like conversation to the rosters where like, yeah, I don't know if certain players should be around anymore. I'm not really
Well,
sure anymore. Yeah.
let's start right at C9 just because I'm thinking about this mix and you can kind of say that Jojo I mean excuse me Blabber is a veteran, and with
He's one of our
Jojo
biggest veterans. He's our longest
exactly.
one of our longest veterans in the
you
scene right
know
now.
and
Yeah.
and so like he's still capable obviously, and so to have him and Jojo together is pretty interesting. Plus Berserker's still young in his career, very promising, lots of good hands, and then you bring in Vulcan, right, who has for the most of his career been pretty steady at support. My question mark though is Fudge. Like I just don't know why, and maybe you guys have differing opinions, but to me Fudge isn't my pick for top lane, and he just extended his contract. I think it was extended. I'm not sure how long it is, but that roster to me seems like it's almost there. But the Fudge pick kind of throws me off. Like when there was rumors that it might be Wonder, I was kind of hyped for that. I thought that could have been something with really good potential, but now I'm just still kind of the same feeling about C9. Like, yeah, they're probably gonna win LCS. I don't know if they'll go anywhere else because I just don't see Fudge being able to compete with any top laders from around the world. But what are your thoughts on the C9 roster?
I think the C9 roster is basically built to destroy NA. Like it shouldn't
Yeah.
no one on paper should win there, right? This is kind of like the fly quest we saw with the Prince Vikla, whatever that means, right? But it shouldn't have real competition. My concern is the Fudge angle. I think Blabber still has it. I think that he's actually gotten more consistent internationally. I used to flame him all the time for being brainless.
Mm-hmm.
He's been way less brainless. Like, yeah, he still makes mistakes, but when your team is just getting blasted in your solo lanes and you've got so much instability, he's actually been relatively smart. And as a jungler, that's actually super hard. When you're under pressure, that's very hard. So I have way more respect for him now, even if he doesn't practice as much. If he can be effective, I don't care as much. I think Fudge is not it. I think that it's just been. I think domestically he's actually quite good. Sometimes he's the only Fiora player on the server, but I feel like he's that talented player who takes shortcuts. I feel like he has the brains for it, the talent for it, but he doesn't work hard enough, and it always shows up internationally. He almost always does not play well enough internationally for what we expect from a top 2 NA top laner, right?
Yep.
And I think that mentality is really bad for Jojo when he's still on his like third year, second year, however you count EG, if you count EG as a real year or not, right? And so I'm really worried about that because I would rather he be with like an impact, like someone who can be a role model, someone who also
Yeah.
works hard, can be efficient, like he might not work the hardest during regular season. So that's all I gotta say. I think Fudge is a huge miss. Like if Sven was still here, that'd be great. But I just don't understand why Fudge keeps getting chances because he truly is the reason they win some of their championships, true, or gets to finals, but he's also the reason they have no chance internationally. Like C9 used to actually be somewhat competitive internationally. Like when they got semis, it wasn't super surprising. It was surprising. Um,
Yeah. I'd like to, pose the question then. What do you think is C9's priority? Are they actually interested in international performances or are they trying to win domestically?
Doesn't seem
Because
like it.
I don't know, like, so here's the depressing thing, right? I think we are getting to the point where, like, the gap is actually getting bigger. There was a time where it was not getting bigger, it was getting smaller. I think the gap is getting bigger year after year. And I think that NA is improving year after year. Our teams are getting better, but the rest of the world is getting better faster. So I think if you're C9, I mean, you can kind of think of it like, what happens when G2 gets rid of perks or TL gets rid of Doublelift, right? Where do they go? Like, Fudge is one of the best top laners in NA. Just like, period. He always has been. We can all hate on Fudge. We can all have problems with his international performance. Trust me, we've been very vocal about it, and the community is super, very vocal about it. But, like, if we're being honest, results wise and looking at his games, like, there's no other top laner that has had a success in years, in NA at least domestically. So if you're C9 and you're thinking about this as like, are we going to have international success if we get some other top laner, right? Are we magically going to what win a series against an Asian team? I don't think there's any top laner in the world that you could just put onto C9, spend a year in NA, and defeat an Asian team. There's not. You could put Zeus on there, and I think he would downgrade playing in NA, and this team would not go anywhere. It would not win worlds. It wouldn't even go that far probably. So what are you supposed to do, right? So it's depressing to think about, and it's not the mindset I like because I still want to win worlds someday. But that is probably the mindset Cloud9 is at. And so why get rid of Fudge, right? They couldn't get Wonder because Wonder decided to go to Heretics with
Mm,
Yankos and Perks, right? Like that's
mm.
probably what the deal was. Like they actually wanted Wonder, they couldn't get him. Fudge is very clearly the next best, right? Maybe they wanted Impact. Impact went to Team Liquid, so
Or maybe even Licorice, but I don't know if that news was
maybe
out
they
yet
didn't
about
even
It was
know,
too
Licorice.
late,
right,
I
about
think.
Gold
Yeah.
EG, yeah, Golden Guardian stuff like that. So like, there's all these like things we can think about. Like Jack's not an idiot, right? He probably tried some ideas. He probably is very clearly like aware that C9 fans are not happy about Fudge. And I'm gonna say something that is like, I'm not a fan of Fudge play, but I will try and defend him a little bit because everybody's just negative about him. Is that yeah, he soaked up resources and he played topside heavy, and it was very underwhelming playing Renekton, getting Rift Heralds and jungle pressure and just doing nothing with it, right? But that's not a Fudge problem. That's a Fudge and a team and a coaching problem. So I personally am most interested in getting rid of the coaching. I said this a few podcasts ago. I'm not a fan of the coaching staff of C9. I'm a fan of maybe aspects of it, right? Because they can get their team to worlds and to titles and finals and stuff. But their drafting is like boneheaded at international, and I think that bled into everybody hating Fudge because he was the product of that boneheadedness. So that's my attempt to defend Fudge. I mean, what else are you gonna do, right? The rest of the roster is Blabber, JoJo, Berserker, Vulcan. Yeah, these are all good players in NA. And I think that I'm just gonna hope that they hit some other different kind of stride that we've never seen them hit before, because if I'm also being honest, Berserker has not had a good international performance. Period. Right? He's had a lot of good domestic performances. He's great domestically. He has not had a good international performance at all. It just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So we have to hope. This is not like, there's no analysis here, guys. If we were to do an analysis, this team doesn't do anything internationally. So we have to hope that they just hit some sort of stride better than we've ever seen. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I got. I think this team is probably top 2 permanently, right, in
Yeah.
NA.
And I
Yeah.
mean, I think Kevin, you mentioned it that there's really nobody on paper that looks like they can contend except maybe for the reigning LCS champs, which is NRG. So let's move to them because their roster pretty much stayed the same, except that Ignar's gone. Their coach, they general manager, and I think a coach is gone, but they did pick up Huhi, which most of the time I'm like, yeah, that's Hui's cool, but it's a reuniting of FBI and Huhi.
Yeah.
And the last time there was FBI and Huhi at 100 Thieves, they definitely started to become not the greatest combo together. And I think them splitting up actually made a resurgence in their individual like careers, and it definitely impacted the teams they were on with success. So them kind of being back together, maybe the separation is good and they have a new energy and they get it energy and
New
they
energy,
get
yes.
and they start to dominate a bot lane again. But that's a big question mark for me. Like, will it be, will they go back into what the slump they were in, or maybe the separation has rejuvenated them and now this will be a decent team. But I think this is another team that could potentially compete against Cloud9. But what are your thoughts on the energy changes?
I think it's a side grade. I think Huhi in general has been better than Ignar for a while. Maybe last split it was a pretty hard no, but I think he has the history for it and he has made teams better. They literally went to so many finals. He's like the finals support guy, right? He's like the barrel of our region in terms of finals. Um, so yeah, I am a little worried they could, get back to their old habits, but at the same time, this is better than an untested duo in the sense of like what you can expect, right? The floor is much higher.
Right.
And they needed not needed, but they could do with someone with a little bit more champ pool, a little bit more variety in metas he can play, and a decent bit more shot calling that we've seen, right? So I think Ignar going to Europe means that he was probably wanted, because Europe is the hotter league right now.
Mhm.
And so honestly, this is probably the best. Like this is maybe an upgrade in some worlds and probably a side grade, right, in most worlds. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, my opinions on Ignar are that he's not very consistent in the regular season, but I do think he's not a choker. I don't think Ignar is even like not. He's just not a choker. I don't think. There's lots of instances to show that he's not really a choker, right? Um, Ignar was, I think, clutch as a player. Um, but Huhi definitely FBI and Huhi they definitely sometimes lack the hands, but I think they have very good strategy. Like this is something I always talk about FBI, where it's like sometimes I don't like some of the mechanics he does, like let's say in this Kaisa, but he's always in the right place at the right time. He always has the most farm, right? And he has the best builds and stuff, item pass, and energy was cooking a lot in draft and stuff, coming with interesting strategies. So I think like who he adds to that area, and who he adds a lot of consistency probably for the regular season and in just general play. But who he is kind of sometimes a bit of a choker. He does have these moments where it seems like his mental collapses and it doesn't come back for a hot minute. So that's my main worry about Huhi is that those are my pros and cons between these two players. Um, I mean, Huhi can obviously still do it, right? He's won before. I mean, so yeah, it's like very side grady. It's very side grady. I
Yeah.
think that I you know, I'm interested to see what who he can do like behind the scenes and like over the course of a year to improve the rest of the team, right? But I'm going to expect it. It's like who he's going to help improve the other four members on his team, but individually he's probably going to perform not as good as Ignar in like playoffs or in finals or international play. Because that's
Right.
just kind of how who he's always been, right? I feel like the higher the pressure in games, the worse he actually literally performs. And he's mostly there for the other stuff, the rest of the year stuff, the out of game stuff. So yeah, that's probably how it shake out. And I'm excited for Energy to run back the majority of their roster because
Mm-hmm.
I mean these guys are getting more and more experience every year that the top side of CLG plays together. They get farther and farther, right? It started off they weren't doing too hot on CLG, and then they kept making top four repeatedly, getting closer and closer to that to making it to an international. And then they won and they made it international and they beat G2. And so I'm excited for the top side to develop more, and I hope Huhi can help that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I guess for me the concern is because Huhi has been definitely known as like the shot caller, a loud voice in the comms. Kind of, the meme is that he tells people what to do and they just listen, right? And I don't know what the shot calling was like beforehand. I think on 100 Thieves maybe there was clash between him and Closer or whoever was the shot callers there. Maybe comms were getting cluttered. So hopefully, it could, I think, go one of two ways. It goes well as far as like everybody's on the same page, who his voice actually is a good presence and everybody's, lined up and it works, or it's going to clash with however they've been doing things. Because, this roster, well, at least for, top side of it, top, mid, and jungle has been together for a while. And so that's a synergy they've been developing. And then FBI and Huhi have also developed some kind of synergy together. So it's bringing it all together. And I think it'll be interesting to see if it goes, I feel like it could go really well. I also think there could also be maybe some clashes potentially.
I do think the type of support who he is, it does work well with the type of player Contracts is as a jungler, right?
Mm.
Contracts is pretty similar to River, if we're being honest. Heavy playmaking, lots of ganks, like not really interested in optimal pathing, more interested in being surprising and clever and getting good ganks off and, having flashy plays and playmaking champions. So I think it translates pretty well. I mean, besides a couple of key things, Huhi and Ignar, yeah, I mean, side grade, they do have a lot of similarities in
Yeah,
play style too. So
exactly.
I think it'll
Okay.
be fine. I think they'll do well. Yeah.
All right. Well, here's
MMA.
the funny thing is, besides those two teams, uh, every other team has a lot of people who I either don't know or are new talent, or both. Because new talent. Sometimes I don't know, or I do know them, or maybe they've been in the LCS before and are coming back. So we'll go through this because, like I said, those two teams give me some familiarity But everything else is kind of, this is a new game. This is a new league, with EG and Golden Guardians gone,
Yeah.
and you would think, like, to me at least, like, those are two rosters with players that, a lot of players didn't find new teams because it was kind of late, right? So a lot of decent players are actually just teamless right now. So let's just go down this real quick because, there's a lot of teams to discuss. But let's start with 100 Thieves. So top lane so far, this is just, I'm reading off of Dexerto, this is 18 hours old. So it's, I guess, most recent. Not all of these are confirmed, but so far it's top lane for 100 Thieves is Sniper. Jungle is River, mid lane is Quid, bot lane is Meech, and support is Ayla. So again, they kept Quid. River is kind of cool, I guess. It's a known name from Golden Guardians, but and Sniper I know has been in the scene, even though he's been young. He's young all this time, so now he's kind of getting into it. But do you guys have any initial thoughts on 100 Thieves right now?
Okay, so first thought is, where's Closer going? He's not on any team, so that's pretty surprising. He had the worst split up. He's probably the worst jungler, second worst jungler last year, but like it's still crazy that he's not here considering how he was literally a top 1, top 2 jungler for so long. But I don't like this in that I like that Sniper's finally getting a chance. It's not that he was just young. He was too young to play. He is literally at the line where he can finally play rules-wise, right?
Right.
And we do this to our talents all the time. We had Kenvi, hyped up Academy jungler. We have Sniper, hyped up top laner, and no one that's a significantly contender level team is giving him a chance. And so he's probably going to look like crap, even though he's probably quite decent mechanically. And this is going to ruin his early career. That's how I feel about it. I think that Quid is not it. I think River is good, so maybe we'll see some great ganks early on. But like, where's he developing from? Like, Ayla is also a recent-ish rookie, and then I don't know who Meech is. I believe he's also Academy. So the thing I like is that they are giving chances to people again, but I just don't know if all the picks, like, who is the veteran that brings this together? Is it River with his English? I mean, I hope so, but yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, right? It's essentially 2 rookies, 2 very green players, and then River. Like, Quid, I mean, when I say green players, right, Quid is basically a rookie. He had less than 1 split played. He had like 70% of a split played or something like that. Sniper is a rookie. Meech is a rookie. Ayla has had, I think, like 2.5 splits, like 1 and 3/4. Like he hasn't, like 2 of the splits Ayla played were not full splits. Like, so this is a very green roster. It's a very new roster. 100 Thieves is going through budget cuts, and it shows here. So I mean, I respect that 100 Thieves is going through budget cuts and not just bringing in random ass imports. So that's cool at least. But yeah, I mean, what's the coaching staff, right? I think that the coaching staff is going to make or break whether this team looks functional or not. If they have a bad coaching staff, this team has no experience. They'll have no cohesion. They will crumble. And yeah, putting a brand new promising talent onto a team that is doing budget cuts that the entire last year struggled to look cohesive, and also had probably terrible coaching problems and tons of roster changes and stuff. Yeah, it doesn't bode well. 100 Thieves, they were given the choice to buy out, but they didn't, so they want to stay here, but they're also on budget cuts and having a very budget roster. And I think that, yeah, I mean, you can you, c- you can be worried about this roster, whether, like, yeah, Sniper, he could learn some bad habits very quickly and just ruin his career, right? I'm sure, like, Tenacity, Kenvi, you put him on an S tier Oregon NA, they look a lot better. That's just how it usually goes, right? If you put Tenacity on Cloud9, I'm sure he looks like way better. So we'll see if it works out. I think that this is a very similar feeling to like EG's roster last split, where it was just a bunch of like random ass dudes put together around JoJo. It's a bunch of random ass people put together around River, and they'll probably do okay. They'll make it to playoffs. They'll have one close series. They're not making it to Worlds, probably. Maybe if like that's probably their peak. I just listed their peak, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Kenvi, again, he's not in the LCS right now. So it sucks because he just, again, hyped up Academy jungler, had a lot of hype, and then really just was on, bottom team Immortals and just couldn't show
It was
anything.
for
And
2 years, right? He was
yeah,
stuck there for 2 years. Like you can't do that, man. That's just
yeah.
your career's dead if you do that. We all saw it coming. We
Well,
said it
hey,
from
I
literally
will
right
say
when he
though,
started.
I think maybe the silver lining in this is that the whole league is kind of new, shaken up, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a sniper, maybe you have a chance, right, to shine amongst all this kind of like new stuff, new teams, new rosters. Who knows who's going to gel together? A lot of new players. Like if you were to come in, like Kenby should come in now because it's like you kind of have a maybe a more even playing field, whereas before it was like it was pretty set. You kind of knew who was good, who was not, and besides, we talked about this already. Cloud9 and NRG, the league is kind of up in the air, as far as who
Yeah,
else can be
I mean,
dominant.
yes, but not for those roles. For top lane, if you look at all the other top
Yeah,
laners, it's stacked as hell. If you looked at all the other junglers, it's stacked as hell. Like I think most of the new people are like in mid and bot, right? So, yeah,
true, true. We'll
Sniper
have
has
to
to
see.
Sniper has to go through a lot of tough top laners this year.
Yeah,
Like there's a lot of really good top laners, so
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go to Team Liquid because again, another team that was on the upper echelon of LCS. But their top laner is Impact. The return of Impact. Jungle is an import named Umti.
Yep.
Umti.
Used to be on Samsung. He's
Okay.
been around for a long time. He's I think he was also in Vitality before Bo joined.
Okay.
He was
Before
there
Bo
1 year.
joined.
Yeah, he had
But
he's like one of the oldest players. He's had stints in almost every top tier org in
Oh
Korea
wow.
besides like T1 and Gen.G. Like he's
Okay.
been I think he was on KT a long time ago. Like he's been
yep.
around a long time.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but you don't know
Umti.
about the huh, League Dad?
Umti.
Damn.
I'm sorry. No, I don't.
Yeah, wow.
Is that how you
You've
say
Yeah.
probably
it? Umti.
Yeah,
you've probably seen the
I said
teams
Umti.
he's been on. Oh, he was not the one on the Vitality roster. I got it mixed up. But yeah, he's been on like KT, he's been on Jin he's been on Breon for a while, which is probably why you don't know
Yeah,
him.
bro.
You don't
Okay,
want okay,
bro.
bro.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I mean, he's
Umti,
cool
mid
though.
lane is APA, bot lane is Yan, and so far I think support is still Core JJ. People were freaking out because he went to Brazil for some competition, but I think it was just for that competition. But I guess that still could be a question mark. I don't know with Core JJ. So, Kevin, this is fitting that it's starting with you because it's your team, man. What are your thoughts on this roster?
Yeah, so my thoughts are Umti actually has fluent English better than Pioshik by far. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
probably better than Core based on the interviews I've seen of him in the brief time. I think that getting a jungler who is a Korean jungler who has that experience, is a veteran, and is more consistent. He's probably not as good as Pioshik's highs, but he is more consistent, which isn't a high bar to clear, is probably a good thing. Impact is like the best top laner in TL history, and it's not close. So honestly, I'm very glad that he's back. Once we lost Impact, that's when TL started going downhill. I do know that double leaving was also a big deal, but in terms of like the direct replacement, like drop off, I think Impact was the highest because it just became instability. Whippo didn't get a fair shot, maybe, but it was just a terrible roster that year. Summit, don't let's not talk about it. Like everything we've put in top lane just has been kind of a nightmare ever since Impact, right? So I think this is a huge grab. Impact hasn't been as good recently, but it could also just be his teams. Like if Prince doesn't even look good on those teams, like it's just really just a team problem, I think. I'm glad AP and Yan are getting a chance, and I think that Team Liquid actually does give people chances a lot. Like Golden Glue was not good on Team Liquid for a while back in the day, and he got a lot of time on that roster.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad. I don't think we're gonna be competing when our mid and AD carry are playing at the level they are. I think Jan was good when he started, but he did not improve at the level I wanted him to. And that could be because Core wasn't playing well either. Not
Yeah.
very few AD carries can look good when their supports aren't looking top tier, right? And then APA just didn't get a fair shot. So he actually deserves this. He could completely flop. He might actually be a Ziggs one trick, but I don't care. He got 8 games. He went to playoffs, and then he went to Worlds. Like that is more than good enough for someone fresh out of NA rookie, right?
Yeah.
Academy. So I think TL made the right moves for the most part. The roster still can speak English, but they are also Korean for the most part. And APA gets another shot, which I really like. I actually think Jan might have less of an upside than I wanted from him, but it's only been 1 year. And if Core can come back, then Jan will most likely look magically better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the development of APA and Yeon. I mean, they got their ass kicked at Worlds. That's just an NA tradition, right? Like, you got to go
Welcome.
through it at some point.
Rite of
So,
passage.
happens once a year. So they did it, and they're gonna come back, and they're going to probably play better. I think most NA players, when they go to Worlds, they get their ass beat, and they do come back and play better. But they don't, they play better domestically. Things kind of stay the same when they go back to Worlds. But so yeah, I'm excited for their development. I'm just excited to see. Mainly APA needs to get his champion pool fixed. If that isn't fixed by spring, like if the first like few weeks of LCS and spring go, and APA is still the same player with the same champion pool, I'm gonna be very disappointed. Right? He should have
Yeah.
been spending this entire time like getting a better champion pool. Like it's been months, right, since he got eliminated from Worlds, up until he'll start in LCS. So he should have a better champion pool by now. Um, and then it'll be good for the team to have some English speaking players, right? Some in Pyoshik didn't speak English. Impact and Umti do. That's a big deal. They speak both English and Korean. This could be maybe the TLCK roster that actually the experiment that actually makes it work, because either Steve wanted everybody to speak Korean. Well, now everybody speaks Korean and English, so you get to push it to both worlds. I don't know. Um, I'm actually like not that excited about Umti. I think Umti is fine. Like I think he's gonna be decent in NA, but he does fit the bill of veteran import that is way past his prime getting imported to Team Liquid in NA. Like it's just the same deal. So if he comes out and is mediocre, it's gonna be like, well, told you so. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a decade. And if he's better than expected, cool. I mean, that's great. How long is he gonna stay in NA? When
Right.
will we see the cracks? I don't know. I hope that like I don't know. I just hope that this team looks cohesive, right? All last year, they had 4 to 5 Korean speaking people, and they practiced the most, they played the most, and they looked the least coordinated out of every single team. They had the best early game, and they imploded in 20 minutes. They never fixed it. All year long, they never fixed it. I hope they fix it, right? Even if they have the same results at Worlds, even if they still only make it to like third place or something like that, I hope they look cohesive in team fights, and I hope they look cohesive past 20 minutes, because that's crazy when you have Cordy J on your team to not look cohesive um, past the 20-minute mark. Like so, Cordy J is the guy I'm looking for to
Yeah.
step up and be good. Yeah.
Yeah. He could use kind of a. I mean, he needs to. I mean, for this team to be successful, he's definitely going to have to. Okay, let's go to Shopify Rebellion. Formerly, it was
We're just
TSM.
going all over the place. Okay.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going everywhere.
Shopify.
We're
Everywhere.
going to Shopify because I recognize some of the names on this roster. So
Going shopping.
we've got Fake God in the top lane. He's back,
Oh,
baby!
let's
He's
go.
back!
Okay, this
Fake
season
God.
just got way better,
It
by the
just
way.
got way better.
The
That's
memes
why I
are
went here,
improving.
man. I was doing it for you,
Yep.
Mitchell. We've got Fake God in the top lane. We've got Boogie in the jungle, Insanity in the mid lane, B-Voy in the bot lane, and Zazel coming back to the LCS in support. Thoughts on this team?
My thoughts. I actually think we should give Fake God a chance again. After seeing Dokla, like Dokla was literally the early Fake
Sure.
God, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he was maybe worse for longer. At least like Fake God was bad for 1 year, ish, a little bit more than a year. So I think that this is interesting that he's getting a chance. I think it's really interesting that whatchamacallit, the Shopify's joining at the time they are. They bought like probably the most valuable legacy spot that's ever going to be up for grabs. And they came up with a roster that's honestly like not that strong on paper, but it's also not phoning it in the sense that like I think Insanity was good last year. Them
Yeah.
keeping him was a good choice. Boogie has that synergy with Insanity. I think he kind of dropped off during Summer Slip, but like he had like good times for sure, and he just did not have a super strong team. I don't know who this AD carry is, but boy, I've never heard or seen them. And
He's from
Zazel's back in the
Pain
league.
Gaming.
Ah,
Oh
I
yeah,
see.
his name does sound
Okay.
familiar. Yeah, that makes okay. I remember him.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So better learn Portuguese. And then Zazel's back. He literally ignored or declined some lower tier
Yeah.
LCS rosters for a while to
Mm-hmm.
play amateur, not even academy. And then he came back, right? So I think he thinks that this roster has some capability. I don't know how good he'll be. He was kind of like I did not like him when he was on C9 when he left. I was like he had started to decline in my opinion, and him and Sven were just like I think it was Sven and him at the time just did not have firepower. So all in all, this should be like an eighth place, seventh place team out of eight. Sorry, sixth place, seventh place team because eight is the highest now, or the
Yeah.
worst now. So I like that they've picked people who weren't just recycled and bad. They've picked people that should get a second shot, and maybe that's the NRG effect. Now, but until I see them, I can't expect more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have some higher hopes on them. I think Insanity was pretty good, and he'll be one of the better mid laners, one of the better, more consistent mid laners in the league. Um, I actually have heard a lot of good things about Zazel. Mostly co-streamers talking about him and that he's always been LCS caliber, and yeah, he's been picking and choosing. And I think yeah, when he did leave, he left on a maybe not so great note on C9. But from what I've heard, other people talking about Zazel, because I haven't actually been able to watch most of his games, is that he is really really good, and his return is exciting. So I'm gonna bank and be a little excited about them, mostly because every new roster or every new organization that comes and buys their way in, hey, they win a title, So yeah, I'm excited for this team to do something. Shopify Rebellion. So yeah, yeah, Fake God is back. That's cool. I'm excited. Yeah,
Maybe he could turn his
yeah.
award into a good thing. Maybe he like smurfs on everyone, and
I
we're
hope
like the
so. I
fake God
mean,
award is now actually
do you
you want
guys
the fake
remember?
God.
It was like I think it was like a year. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
deal. It
yeah.
was an NA.
Uh
He
huh.
a bunch of Korean players came in and he like solo killed 369 or something, and then he made this huge ass twit longer, and then he had a banging year in academy. So this is his
Yeah.
redemption arc. This is his anime arc
Exactly.
back to the top, and
Yep.
I'm here for it. Hey, in Emines's Dunzo Manifesto, Fake God's mom cooked some good ass Korean food. So like
There you go.
he's got the protein ready to go for the brain for bigger plays,
Yep.
more less inting. Yeah, we'll see.
All
I'm
right.
excited. I'm
Sounds good.
excited. Shopify. Maybe
All
they'll
right.
win.
Let's go to FlyQuest. I don't know who their top laner is. Maybe you guys have seen who it is, but their
It's
jungler.
Buppo.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's Bwipo. Jungler is Inspired. Mid lane is Jensen. Bot lane is someone named Masu, and then their support is Buzio. That's right. I did hear it was Bwipo. So again, few names here. Some that have been around the league. Actually, three of them been around the league, and Bwipo, Inspired, Jensen, and Buzio, still a young player coming over from 100 Thieves. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, this seems like especially in this environment, maybe fifth, sixth place team. Maybe I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this
Oh, I
roster?
think this team could go way better. What?
Okay.
They took all of the most like the bench players with the highest like history, pretty much the highest, biggest resumes, and their top side, right?
Yeah.
Whippo, world finalist, has been really good. He had a bad year on Liquid, and then he took a year off, right? And he was pretty happy while he was taking the year off. So he got the break he needed. It's a very good pickup, in my opinion. If they didn't get impact on Liquid, I think Whippo was like the natural, like slot him in, get English speakers, good luck. Inspire's crazy. Like the fact that he's still here, I thought he would go back to Europe for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think that the man is really good. The EG roster was partially carried by him. He definitely made JoJo's first split look better than it might have been with just a regular NA jungler or EU jungler or import in general. And he also helped shore up Danny's weak laning phase. Like it is really hard to like put in like to put down like how good he was. So I think that's great. I don't think Jensen had a great last split, but he just does have those results. Don't know who Masu is. I think he's a
Masu
rookie.
was on the Disguised Toast roster. He was playing
Yeah.
with
Oh,
Zazel. He
okay.
was he
Okay.
was like considered. He's probably one of the most He was probably one of the most contested ADCs to pick up in this season.
That's great. I mean,
Interesting,
NA
yeah.
ADC rookies are generally pretty good, especially in their first split. They have like a buff for their first year or split usually. Buzio didn't get a fair shot. Whether, well, okay, getting double F as your AD carry is like the best shot you could have in terms of visibility, but is it the best shot you can have in terms of development? I would argue generally no. I think if you're both good, double is an amazing AD carry to have. But if you're like Ole, you're kind of developing, you don't have an ego yet, you're trying to build a
Yeah.
character, yeah, no. So
Yeah, I was wrong. That was Meech actually. Meech was the guy that was on this guy.
Meech.
This
Okay.
guy was just on FlyQuest Academy, and he was pretty good. He was pretty good.
Okay.
I think this team
I
is
think
good
he was
though.
like second place in Academy. Yeah.
think
Yeah,
it's
Meech
fourth.
was the guy that was on this guy. So whoopsies. Yeah. My opinion on this roster is that they're probably just gonna have a pretty high floor, and a potentially high ceiling. I don't think they're gonna hit that ceiling, unfortunately, because I'm not a super big fan of Buzio. We'll see. Inspired and Buzio, they're going like I think that personality is going to be the biggest problem for this roster. It was
I
the
can
biggest
see that.
problem for their last FlyQuest roster, right? FlyQuest is
Mm-hmm.
trying to make big moves, and the problem is not going to necessarily just be the players. It's probably going to be the management and coaching staff in FlyQuest. They completely baffled one of the craziest rosters NA has ever had. They fucked it up so badly.
Yeah, they did.
They went ninth place, right? They had some of the best players in NA history. So
Ninth
I'm
place
not
in an
excited about.
8-team league.
Yeah, I'm not excited about FlyQuest having a hold of these players. I do think that this is just going to be a higher high in general. I think Inspired and Blippo are just they are very consistent. But like, what was the problem with FlyQuest, right? It was the bot lane, and what do we have? A very unknown support. Double speaks highly of Buzio. I have never seen anything to say that I think Buzio is remotely good. All the last year, I thought he was super mediocre. And Masu is a complete rookie. He has only like LCS is a total different road to travel on. And Jensen, I mean, he just got off of a really bad roster, right? I'm sure he picked up some bad habits. So I think that, better coaching staff, literally take these exact 5 people in a different org. This team could be way better, but I'm not super excited about it, unfortunately. And, that's why it's going to be interesting. I hope they prove me wrong. Please, God, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Please. I've been a FlyQuest fan for a while, and I cannot show my face around, So, yeah, let's
Yeah.
move on.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's go to Immortals. So top laner is Castle. Jungler is Armao. Mid lane is Mask. And then bot lane is Tactical, with support being Ole, who's coming back. So, look, the fact that Immortals is still in the LCS, I'm going to stop giving them some, as much flack as I do, just because the fact that they wanted to be here. They could have gotten out and they didn't. So, they're keeping the league alive. But what are your thoughts on the roster though?
They occupied a spot.
They occupied a spot. Thank you.
Yeah, so Castle's a Korean top laner. I think Mass is also a Korean mid laner. It looks like he's been a Hanwha before he was on T1 Academy or T1 for a little bit. KT Challenger, like he's been on a lot of like decent challenger rosters. Castle has no history on Leaguepedia, so I have no idea who he is. These two, they pick 2 Koreans, and then they have some NA players. I don't like Armeo. My feelings about Tactical. I want the best for Ole, but like it's him and Tactical could be good, but I think they're gonna blow up at times, as expected. So yeah, it's not exciting. This is probably the bottom roster, or Dignitas.
Okay, yeah. I mean, what's changed? They're still, Immortals, Dignitas.
But
Yeah,
I think this one's more likely to be.
I think this roster is going to be pretty mediocre. I mean, they're Korean solo laners, right? They're pretty greenish, right? Not super experienced. I think that like pairing them with a jungler like Armao is like one of the worst things you can do for their development. Armao does not seem like a good leader. Armao seems like, I mean, everything that we've ever heard about Armao and all the rosters, all the people that have played with him, and even his most recent stint on EG, is that he's very stuck in his way. He likes to jungle one way, period. And if you don't do it, he throws a tantrum. I don't know. I don't actually know, but it doesn't seem like he's a flexible guy. Tactical, I mean, I've kind of warmed up to him. I think he's gotten better. He probably had some emotional problems that made him int like crazy on TL, but I do think he's gotten a lot more consistent and better. Ole just hasn't really shown anything interesting since his return to LCS. So yeah, not super excited about this. Oh, and also the nail in the coffin that makes this Immortals org probably the most incompetent thing ever. They want to be here, but maybe they shouldn't be. Is that they had to like unsign Castle because they misspelled his name and they had to like re-sign him or something. Like that
God
is just
dang
to
it.
me is like, guys, I know you want to be here, and I'm very excited and happy for you, but maybe you shouldn't be here. Like Jesus Christ, guys.
It is interesting that they are here, but yet, like, I know EG, that makes sense that they're gone. But Golden Guardians, man, that's kind of, to me, that's like, I mean, I get it. It's the Golden State Warriors. They, they want to focus more on basketball. Maybe they don't
I
see
mean, they
this as a
said
good
this isn't
investment.
making enough money. We ain't winning
Right.
enough stuff. Let's go back to basketball.
But it's just crazy because even if that's the case, they have to have seen the success that their team had, and for them to still be like, yeah, it's not worth it. But then you still have someone like Immortals who stays in, but still keeps a roster that's like nothing has changed. I don't know. It's like, do you
I'm
want to lose more
pretty
money? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure teams like Cloud9 and Team Liquid do not make a profit ever. Zero. So think about the Immortals.
It's
Where's
like
the
they're
money,
losing
man?
less money.
Yeah.
They're losing less
Where's the
money because,
going?
yeah, that's true.
They're,
That's a
they're,
good
they're
point.
just they're not getting anything. Who's
Yeah.
buying Immortals jerseys, man?
True. That's true. Okay. Well, the last team here is Dignitas, and I've saved them for last because so top lane it's Rich. Jungler is XU. I feel like I've seen that name before. I'm not sure where it's from. Mid lane is Dove. And then the reason I say this is because we still don't know their bot laner and support. And funnily enough, Doublelift doesn't have a team, and neither does Sven. Even though Sven said he wants to switch back to ADC, if he wants to play in the LCS that bad, do you think we could see a Doublelift Sven bot lane?
Wow.
So, okay. So thoughts on that roster? I mean, there's only 3 fits of it, but then also, I guess, the speculation of, who could fill those 2 spots.
Rich was good. He was actually quite good in his first split, and then he kind of dropped off with the face of the earth. He did have River. XU did not get a fair shot. He was an academy jungler. He got like subbed in like some emergency situation like 2 years ago, I feel like, and he just got smacked down back to academy, right? The NA special. Dove, don't remember him much. I think he was on like one of the Korean teams, and he was always like very bottom half, middling at best. So not exciting. I think Sven Doublelift could have happened in a world where this was a better roster, but this is not a better roster. So why would they do that? I think maybe Zen joins just so that he can be a player because he is serious about playing. I think Double would stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Doublelift is 100% streaming at this point. I actually don't know if I don't know if TL confirmed Yeon or not. I think that's the only tiny 1% slim chance that Doublelift would end up on Team Liquid, but I don't think it's happening. I mean, honestly, this roster is not interesting to me. I don't actually think Rich was that good, right? I think Rich was the exact same boat as like just every import ever. Pretty good when he came, completely degraded and degenerated playing in NA. Just could not cope with the ecosystem. Dove, he was on Sandbox, he was on KT, he was on Invictus Gaming. He is the kind of player who's been around for 4 to 5 years, never reached his peak, and is imported. Not a good veteran, not at this peak. Just probably going to go the same way as veterans. This is a very negative. I was very negative this podcast. I gotta admit. I don't know. These rosters are not hitting it for me. I think these rosters have not been doing it for me this year.
A lot of new stuff.
I mean, so I'm gonna try and be positive and say that you know what? I hope Dignitas gets an interesting bot lane, and I hope that they are someone or some people who maybe deserve chances to play. I actually hope it's not Sven. I don't want to see Sven. Give me some newer names and just say, send it. Dignitas is for new players to get their hands into the scene and
get their feet
hope
wet.
they can get your feet wet. Hope you can get signed onto a better org. Because once again, like this is not a good place to foster talent.
I mean, the thing I could say is that with everything being new, again, it's a new season. I mean, gameplay is going to be really different, I think, just with the new map changes. I think that's going to definitely change how the game is played. So who knows? These rosters, even though we have well-known names, maybe it affects them in a certain way. So that's what's interesting about this. And we won't really know until the game starts. So this is all just, shooting from the hip right here, but it's fun to do that anyway. So that's kind of the rundown of, I guess, our initial thoughts of the rosters. Do you guys have any final thoughts on anything before we wrap this thing up?
My final quick thought was that I think there's actually a lot of hype in me. There's a super team there, like a very cool team that could be good if Fudge gets good. And NA is consolidated, so we'll have less bad games.
True.
I am excited for the eventual train wreck that is going to be FlyQuest. I think that they are going to have some
You
high
just said you were
highs, some
negative
low
this
lows.
whole podcast, and you were
am.
going to try to be positive.
Oh yeah, this is the positive.
Oh,
No,
okay,
this is me
okay.
being positive.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'm gonna have fun watching FlyQuest. I think that they're
Okay.
gonna be good. They're gonna be doing some crazy stuff. You're randomly in the middle of it. You're gonna be like, why do they suddenly look so ass? They're playing terribly.
Mm.
And then a couple weeks later, we're gonna get a spicy ass Inspired interview, and we're gonna speculate. There's gonna
Love
be tons
it.
of drama because
Love it.
Inspired. I mean, it just seems like drama follows him, right? He just seems like that kind of guy. And then
Yeah.
yes, finally, I'm excited for Shopify Rebellion. They have the new org. If they win Spring Split, then it is a tradition. If you enter the league as a new org, you win the split. So I'm ready to see if that happens.
Let's
And
go.
I'm ready for Fake God to get a title. Like, he has been
Let's go.
the best in NA for a long time. He deserves his title. He's one of those players. He's like Uzi, never won Worlds, right? This is NA's Uzi. Never won LCS, probably deserves it. Fake
Whew.
God is, where does he derive his name from? From Faker himself. So
Exactly.
there
All
it
right.
is.
Well, there it is. Fake God is winning the title this next split. So
I mean, that would be so funny.
let's end with that. I think those are great final words. But that's going to wrap it up for us. Thanks again to Kevin and Mitchell for always sharing their wise thoughts. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Peace.